Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and I have a passion for empowering others to take responsibility for their careers. Yes, I've written several books on owning your career and am loving hosting this podcast. This podcast is for you if you're willing to make a shift to the driver's seat in your career. We feature leaders who inspire, empower, and motivate you for consistent career action for results. Please continue to join us every Sunday when a new episode is released. Let's get into this week's show. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm delighted to have with us today Mompreneur Lindsay Arakelian. Lindsay is the owner of Lindsay's Handmade Ice Cream, and she is going to share a delightful story about how she started her business during the pandemic. Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Awesome to have you here. So, Lindsay, you have been doing your own thing. Your background is in the corporate space, and you've been doing your own thing, finding opportunities to be self-employed. When voila, during the pandemic, you come up with this new idea. Tell us what happened.
Sure. I had been self-employed and working locally, and the pandemic hit, and like everyone else, I was stuck at home. So I just started doing what everyone was doing, cooking, baking, doing the bread, doing the cookies. And I just thought to myself, I should make that ice cream that I had that time. I had this goat cheese ice cream up in Maine a few years ago, and that was the only place I'd ever seen it. And it was so blissful. I remember just that feeling I got when I ate this incredible ice cream. So I thought, I'm going to try to recreate that. I now have this opportunity to do this. So I just took out my ice machine and started playing around with different recipes, and it was amazing. It was so good. I was just blown away by how good it was to make something that was just so different that I can't get anywhere else. I said, I'm going to do this some more. I'm going to look in my pantry. I'm going to look in my fridge. I'm going to look in my cabinets and see what else I can make, because ice cream, I realized, is such a blank slate. You can flavor it with anything. So I started experimenting with spices and with different fruits and with different flavor combinations, and it just sort of turned into this passion of partly a challenge, like, can I make something with this? And oh my gosh, this is so good. Why doesn't anybody do this? So I was making ice cream, just cranking it out, and I was giving it to neighbors and giving it to friends. And the consensus was, you need to start a business because this product is insane. You need to get this out there because this is just so incredible. And I thought to myself, yeah, I can do that. Why can't I do that? Sure, I'm going to look into this. So I feel like my career has been a series of things that just happened to me, opportunities that just happened to me. But this was my first real aha moment. Like, I can do this.
That is amazing to come up with this idea and then to have it so well received, where people are saying, yes, there's a demand for it. We want your ice cream. Now, you mentioned that this is the first time in your career where you are. Would you say this is the first time you're in the driver's seat?
Fully 100%, yes.
And so what's going off in your head to allow you to move forward, to stay in the driver's seat and to follow this opportunity through?
What's going on in my head is I'm accountable. Only I can do this. I will probably need help, and people have stepped up and offered to help. There's been friends and acquaintances who have expertise in certain fields, and they said, hey, I will help you, which has been kind of nice to have that support behind you. And I was like, where do I even begin? Where do I begin? I have to figure this out. No one is going to drop a manual in front of me saying, this is how you do it, because this is just, I have to figure out my brand and what I wanted to represent, which is important to me. And how to get funding and how to get equipment. I had to just, like an octopus, just put arms out everywhere and just learn everything, take in everything I could get, because it's really starting from scratch. I don't have any background in this field. I don't have any food industry experience. This is just a passion that's grown and turned into something that's viable.
I love that. What do you say to our listeners who are on the fence about betting on themselves? I find when you make a change like this, it's about really believing strongly, deeply in yourself that you can do this. What do you say to the listener who is perhaps in a corporate job and has discovered something about themselves during the pandemic, or even an entrepreneur who's been dabbling and just not feeling like they can stick with it? What would you say to them?
I would say, and it sounds like such a cliche, but follow your dreams, go for it. I've been there. I was in corporate for decades, and I know like what it's like, when you feel so small and you feel like you're not in control of your career. If you can start something, even as a side gig, even as just building a foundation to get yourself in a place where you feel like, I can do this, just don't let that go. If you really have something that you're passionate about and you think, I can do this could work, what's the worst thing that could happen if it doesn't work out? I mean, really, that's another thing I really thought about. Like, if this doesn't work out, what have I lost? I can still I can get a job. I'll be fine. You'll be fine. Even if you try and it doesn't work out, you'll be fine. And you will have learned so much. And it's really empowering to just own something and it's yours. It's not anybody else's. You're in charge of it. So bet on yourself. Absolutely.
Interesting. So if you were to think right now, just based on what you've learned in your time in corporate, in other self-employment opportunities, and now with the ice cream, your own business, what would you say are the key ingredients for success? What is the formula for owning your career, Lindsay?
Perseverance has been a major ingredient, because there are times where I've been so frustrated and I just like, oh, this is so annoying, but it never crossed my mind. If you really find like your thing, it won't even cross your mind to give up. Giving up is sort of like, you'll know when you get to that point, but I haven't gotten to that point. I was like, okay, here's a challenge. Here's multiple challenges. All right, how do I navigate these challenges? How do I get to the next step? Because that really, you have to get through that phase of figuring out whether you need funding or a storefront, or whether you need some kind of a business plan. You have to really dig in and roll up your sleeves and just get into it and just go straight. Just go. It's like lights green, just go, keep going. If you need to stop and take a breather, of course, do that. I mean, there were times where I was like, I just need to not think about ice cream for a day. But generally, you just have to keep going, because once you get to the next step or through the thing that you're trying to get through, you feel so accomplished and you're like, wow, all right, now I know what I need to do. Let me see what I need to do next. So you just go on to the next thing. Just keep going.
So what resources have been helpful to you on this journey?
In the beginning, I actually attended a fantastic seminar held by our local Chamber of Commerce, a guide to starting your own business. And there were a lot of local resources in various fields who spoke about what you need to learn and what you need to have in order to start a business, just the very foundation, like talking about different business types, LLC versus sole proprietor, things like that. For me, the WBDC, which is the Women's Business Development Coalition, is that right?
Might be council, but yes.
Council, thank you. Is a fantastic resource for women business owners, or even people thinking of starting a business. They have fantastic counselors who can speak with you with different backgrounds and really help guide you to your next step. They're not going to hold your hand and talk you through it, but they will answer questions and let you bounce ideas off of them. SCORE is another fantastic resource.
Yeah.
SCORE is a nationwide organization I had a SCORE counselor who was in the food industry for so long, and we did some FaceTimes, and he was great. He said, okay, keep me updated. I think what you have here is great. So here, getting that validation from people who have been there is also really like cements your motivation. At least it did for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really great organizations.
You've identified some great organizations. And I think that's key. Even if you're in the corporate space, finding organizations that can support the development of your career, but you have to invest the time to take advantage of resources that are out there. So Lindsay listed quite a few. I'm familiar with all of them. And the thing is, you do have to invest the time to participate in the training that they offer, to meet with the counselor. You've got to you also have to do the work. So it's not just about access to those resources. You also have to do the work as well. Lindsay, if you were to title your career body of work, what would it be?
My career body of work, I think it would be flying by the seat of my pants. Literally, that's the way I felt. Some people, they know what they want. They know, I want to be a teacher. I want to do this thing. They know from a young age. I've always just been sort of like, I just want to do something I like. I just want it to be something that I am proud of and, makes me happy, makes other people happy. It's like I said, my career path has just been like a pinball in a pinball machine.
That's a great visual.
Going with whatever came up. I went from the wine spirits industry to an investment bank to a marketing company. It's so, when you're open to other opportunities, and even if you don't know what you want to do when you grow up, just being open to opportunities, what do you have to lose? Again, what's the worst thing that can happen? You get a job you don't like, fine. You look for another one. It might take a while. I've been there. I've left jobs after a month because I'm just like, nope, this isn't going to work for me. So don't be afraid to do what's best for you and your career and your mental health and your well-being. If something is just draining on you, because I know how that is, just don't resign yourself to that position, because you don't have to. Especially in this job market, even if you're looking for another corporate job or a different opportunity, just apply. When I think back, I applied for jobs that were so out of my league when I was out of college, but they called me not because they wanted me for that job, but because they looked at my resume and they said, we'd just like to meet you. Sometimes that happens. They're like, maybe there'll be something else. Come in and talk. So I had non-interviews that were not interviews. You can get your foot in the door just by trying. It's that simple. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it. And it's not going to always happen that way, but you can. Absolutely, you can.
I've got 3 visuals for the book cover, Lindsay. One is the pinball machine. And one is, I don't know why, maybe because I have a daughter that's 6 and we watched a movie about a squirrel. But when you said flying by the seat of your pants, I just had a visual of a squirrel in my head. I do not know why, but that came up for me. And then, it's just being open to experiences. I love what you're saying about just being like a blank canvas and trying different things. And what came up for me was that In Search of Ice Cream or something. All sorts of thoughts were going in my head, just your journey to ice cream or your journey to your true passion and being open to experiences along the way.
Yeah. It combines a lot of passions, like a passion for food, and ice cream, of course, is delicious. A passion for creating things, like you can really get creative, and a passion for just doing it on my own. I really would. It's much more empowering to be in a position where you're in the driver's seat.
Yes, yes. And so what's next for Lindsay's handmade ice cream?
I am currently in the process of trying to build out a manufacturing space here in Norwalk, Connecticut. And let me tell you, doing a build out at a time where there are supply chain shortages and labor shortages and trade shortages is very challenging. So everything's taking longer than I would like. I mean, I wanted to make ice cream for Christmas. I was really hoping that would happen, but at this rate, hopefully by the spring, I'll be where I want to be. But that's where I'm at now. I'm trying to open a production facility, and I'm going to start wholesaling. And hopefully that will open more doors to more opportunities.
I'm sure it will. You'll have to come back to the podcast and tell us how you're doing once
I'd
the
love that.
production facility is opened, and
I will.
I will be looking for your ice cream in stores, in Stu Leonard's or something like that.
Oh, I hope so. Fingers crossed.
Yes. I'm sending you good energy. Please tell our listeners how they can stay connected with you, Lindsay.
You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram. My Instagram handle on both is Lindsays Handmade. Just Lindsay with an A, LINDSAYS, handmade, all one word. You can check out my website, which is lindsayshandmade.com. And if you want to send me an email, lindsay@lindsayshandmade.com. I would love to hear from anyone who wants to chat, have a question, bounce ideas. If I could, give back some of the time that was given to me by people in my position, I would love to do that.
Wonderful. Well, Lindsay, thanks so much for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this week's Empowering Career Story on the podcast. If you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure that you are subscribing and that you rate and review the podcast. It's so important as we continue to spread the word of career empowerment. In addition, you can head over to the LinkedIn platform and join the Power of Owning Your Career discussion group. There you can have access to the guests who have been on the podcast, as well as others listening to the podcast, as well as myself, where we can continue the conversation. I hope to see you on that platform. You can also email me at pooyc@simonemorris.com if you have a suggestion for guest or a message that you want me to hear personally. Thanks so much, and make it an inspiring, empowering week in your career.